Hello and welcome. I'm Tim Santoni, the host of Background Screening Tips and Tech. Today we have a very special episode. We have Derek Hinton joining us. He's dialing in and he's going to be talking a little bit about his background in the background screening industry, as well as his company CRA Zoom and how that helps CRAs as it relates to PBSA accreditation. Derek is a proud graduate of the University of Kansas. He is also the author of the Criminal Records Manual, first published back in 2002. Now it's on the third edition. It deals with ethical, legal, and public policy considerations of the use of criminal records in employment screening. Derek, thanks so much for tuning in, and really appreciate you joining the show. Maybe to start out, just give our listeners a little bit of a sense of who you are, where you come from, and kind of your history in the background screening world, so we have some foundation to work from.
Okay. Well, I started working for a CRA in 1984, straight out of college. It was a little company in Tulsa, Oklahoma called DAC Services. It was really one of the first, and the market was the trucking industry. And so I started in a sales job there. It was creating an employment history file for truck drivers, and our main claim to fame is we could get a driving record in 48 hours. They would order via a little, they didn't call them laptops then, they called them a notebook computer. We would go to the DMV of any state that they wanted, and then at night when the phone rates were low, that used to be a thing, we would call their office and it would print out the driving records. Prior to that, they'd have to mail off to the Department of Motor Vehicles. They'd hire a driver, ask if you had any tickets. I haven't had a ticket in years. The guy would get halfway across the country, and here comes the driving record in the mail, and they forgot about their DUI. So that was the get a driving record before you get a long-haul truck driver on the road. And at that time, they had multiple licenses. When they went in to apply for a job, they'd give the Texas license, which they kept pristine. And when they got stopped by a cop, they'd give them the Colorado driver's license. So the Colorado driver's license didn't look so hot, but they would give the employers. So we created a pointer file. I stayed with the company for 20 years in various positions. They got bought out. I fired myself in about 2003, and about that time I was helping start PBSA 2001 at the first meeting, when the industry decided as a whole. I mean, there were the three big credit bureaus, but we kind of needed a voice and kind of band together for common good.
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you for the establishment of that. As someone who's a little bit newer to the background screening industry, I think PBSA is amazing, and the work that volunteers and professionals like yourself have done to really elevate the field is really, really important. And I think that PBSA continues to do a great job and continues to grow and do some amazing things as far as supporting, lobbying for, and protecting and elevating the background screening, both on the employment and the tenant side. So fast forward to, you're out of the background screening, you're moving into consulting. Tell me a little bit about CRA Zoom and what it is that you guys do as it relates to the PBSA accreditation, and kind of how you guys help background screeners in that regard.
Well, the PBSA began, and whether you were a member of PBSA or not, that was kind of, although it was known by NAPBS then, but they decided to create a accreditation program. And so this wasn't a matter of being a member. This was 6 different sections of everything from IT security to general business practices to verifications to criminal records best practices, some having to do with regulatory issues, some not, some just best practices. So they kind of introduced that in 2009. And at the end of 2011, I think there were 17 companies accredited, and most of those had been in or about half of them had been in the initial group. And the problem with the the issue with the accreditation was it took about 3,500 man hours to do. I mean, it's a major process. It's not a test question where you say, yeah, we do this, yeah, we do this. It's show me a policy and procedure and demonstrate that you are doing what you say you do, whether that's auditing criminal records or whatever. So, a lot of the people in the industry were my friends, and they said, Derek, this stuff. You ought to go out and spend 6 months, offer a service where you go out and spend 6 months and help these companies get accredited, because they don't have the 3,500 man hours to do this. They got a business to run. And, of course I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I've got kids at home and I'm not going to leave for 6 months and implement it. And it finally hit me I didn't have to do that. So I created a package. I went through every clause, subclause, created a policy, a procedure, an employee handbook stipulation, a contract, everything written, and created a template. And so that companies, it's not a matter of being, William Shakespeare and trying to write 300 pages or exactly what do I do? I did that for them. And so that creates their job to be that you make sure that you do what you say you do. And so, of course, I talked with PBSA and the auditing firm before I did this and said, there's going to be a lot of this, this 50 pages of policy and procedure. It's going to start looking alike. And they said, that's not a problem. You don't get extra credit for thinking of a way to do something that nobody else has ever thought of. And yet this isn't a writing exercise. As a matter of fact, conformity is kind of what we're looking for in the industry. So I created this package. It's on electronic and, hard copy, and offered that to companies. And so now I think there's about 140 companies, and the vast majority of them have been my clients. It's not that I'm, smarter than they are or that anything like that. It's just, they don't have time to do it, and I've got a program that gets them there fast, and they know they're not going to fail if they do what's required, and it's cheaper than trying to tackle it themselves. So I've been doing that since about 2012. It later came on there are CRAs that are always entering the industry, and they're not ready for accreditation, so I have a startup package, and this is your master service agreement and your disclosure and authorization, pre-post adverse action templates for clients, employee, salesperson, confidentiality, non-compete agreements, education, privacy policy for the website, etc., just so they can get started and have a policy and procedure. And then when they are ready to get accredited, they can jump up to that.
Gotcha. And so the accreditation, I think, elevates background screeners to a different level and obviously puts them in a different class, right? There's some marketing, there's some, ability to get involved in other projects. From your perspective, beyond just the enhanced compliance, what are some other reasons why a CRA or background screening company, is looking at the accreditation process and the benefits of that?
I've worked with companies as small as 6 people, and I've worked with people, companies hundreds, maybe thousands, and I have never had one say, I'm not a dum-dum, and I thought I was doing things pretty well, but this has improved my services, which I didn't really expect. At the very beginning, this was, accreditation was something that was nice to tout, and it's, it's not a plaque on your wall. It does deal with how to keep your clients, how to educate them and keep them. So it's, after a while, it became on RFPs and talking with new clients. It was, it used to be, are you a member of PBSA? And then it became, are you accredited? And so that was kind of on a RFP, that's pretty much a knockout question now. And the latest thing is that current clients, I've had people call, their house is on fire because one of their largest clients says, hey, look, one of our guys, one of the attorneys or something is looking around, and there's such a thing as accreditation that the insurance companies like, and it's a good thing to have. You're not accredited. You need to get accredited because we're going to put this out for a request for proposal. So that's kind of the way it's gone. And for the smaller companies, it was I kind of there's so much stuff. I kind of used to wake up at 4 a.m. and wonder, oh Dad, am I gonna am I doing everything right so they sleep better?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, if you have enhanced policies and procedures internally, obviously you can enhance the work product. I think it's better for training and replication and conformity with those processes internally. Externally, obviously, the client may not understand that enhances the work product and the compliance and the reporting and all and the adjudication and all that stuff that goes along with that. And obviously the forward-facing marketing stuff, which is great. But again, enhancing the profession as a whole, I think is really, really important. As far as the CRA Zoom, when is it that, how is it that you marketed that service? Is obviously very well networked in the industry, but what is it you do to make sure that you stay front and center with people and people know about Derek and CRA Zoom?
It's mainly really word of mouth. I may know a lot about the FCRA and employment screening, but I'm no marketing genius, to be quite honest. So most of the people know me, and if they ask about accreditation, I mean, I'm the person. But I like to go to we were talking about PBSA and the value of it as an organization. I like to go to the meetings. I missed the mid-year in DC. This year is in Dallas. Last year it was in Colorado. But this is a really interesting industry as far as education goes. But it's also the CRAs help each other. It's really it's different than, say, the insurance industry that I've been in, or the trucking industry, where it was cutthroat. And of course, you got competitors who you probably cuss at night and all of that. But when you get together at these meetings, the educational and war story sharing is different than any other industry I've been in. And it may be because it's an entrepreneurial industry. Most of them started small. This isn't an industry like your major credit bureaus where you got Equifax or and you go there and it's a bunch of suits. This is an entrepreneurial industry that started with a lot of small companies. There's a lot to it, and it's funny. We're kind of all into this together. So I like to go to the meetings. I've given webinars for PBSA. I'm on LinkedIn, the website. But that's mainly, I've been in the industry for coming on 40 years. So it's, I'm old and people know me. One of the things we were talking about, the little company, the entrepreneurial, a lot of times there'll be several people who start and you've got a criminal record guru in-house, or you've got somebody who kind of knows the verifications. One of the things about accreditation is it institutionalizes the knowledge of this. And so if you have, Bobby, and he's worked for you for 10 years and he knows everything about criminal records and how to do all that kind of stuff, going through the accreditation documents that and institutionalizes the knowledge that Bobby had if he goes someplace else. It's not a test that you take for knowledge. It's a company worksheet for how to do business.
Sure. And you had a couple things there that I think are super important. I think that the processes and procedures that need to be in place and the sharing of those. I would agree that in this industry, coming into it, there's so many people that are willing to share information and to share war stories, whether it's platform providers or other CRAs or other people that are vendors of records, of furnishers of records, as we now call them. And I think that there's a couple things that impact that. One is it's very entrepreneurial. A lot of people have built from the ground up. Other times it's that the fear of the compliance, the litigation, and the risk associated with the industry, and banding together to know that we need to protect each other in order to protect the industry as a whole, really goes a long way. And although a lot of people do move from company to company, and there's a lot of employees that have worked in a lot of places, I would say that the knowledge sits with a handful of really refined experts who, like yourself, really add value to the business and the industry as a whole. And as you scale and grow, it's super important to have those people or the resources in place in order to do that, because it's difficult. Like you said, the man hours required to do some of this stuff is mind-boggling, right? It's just not something you can tackle on your own. And I think that's why, again, looking at the accreditation process myself, it's daunting, right? And to look at all the language and the requirements, and if you don't have the templates, and again, you may say you do something a certain way, but let's prove it. Show me all your master service agreements. How organized are your things? Do you have addendums for all this stuff? And I think one thing that we talked about too is that you made reference to it, working with vendors or data furnishers that are also compliant or accredited. Maybe shed some light on that, because again, it's not just what you do, it's who you do business with. So if you're buying records from a furnisher, whether that's domestic, international, or you're outsourcing verifications, share a little bit about why that's important to work with people that are also, doing things the right way.
Yeah, that's interesting. If I was to go down the street here and open up a nail salon, I'd have to have a license. If I wanted to start a CRA, tomorrow, I don't have to have a license. I can go to, I can hang out my shingle and I is a CRA. Isn't that strange? And we're dealing with social security numbers, date of birth, all PII. So that's interesting. A lot of the vendors you talked about, one of the reasons that they're so helpful is because they started in the same place. Whether you talk about your platforms, your BackCheck, your TazWorks, your Ossios, the rest, they started out as, they didn't start out as a conglomerate starting to build this package. Same with criminal record vendors. These guys were, they may have started out as a court retriever. And so that is part of it, is that it's a very entrepreneurial industry, not just the CRAs, but the people who supply them with information. And so they've grown with us. They've grown with the industry. So when you deal with, in the olden days, you might have a criminal record provider that your contract consisted of $3.50 from Creek County, Oklahoma. That's the contract. And so, that's changed, and there's templates that you really, okay, if there's a dispute, will you get on that for me? Will you look at that? Do you order criminal records on your how do you vet your subcontractors? I don't want you sending me these reports in the clear on email. Okay, I got a system here that says, you come in on a secure network, and the agreement has to talk about that. What kind of errors and omissions do you have? So there's certain things. It may be they don't have any, but then you need to cover for them. So it's just anytime there's a dispute on a criminal record, you shouldn't have reported that because the record was sealed, it was expunged, or you were looking for John Doe, and my Doe was spelled with an H on the end of the last name. And so there's the, what were the reasonable procedures? Was that maximum possible accuracy? And so it's going to come into discovery, and you're going to have to figure out, well, if you got a contract that says $4, that's not. That doesn't look very good. So you got to have in the agreement that they're going to use their best efforts to provide accurate information, and that they'll research it for you, that to their knowledge they're not going to break any federal or state law, etc.
Yep. That goes back to reasonable diligence. What is that? Show it, prove it, and show us that that's how you do it all the time, because it's not something, it's good and bad, right? Well, Derek, before we let you go, maybe just highlight something that has come up recently, and I think there's some legislation that was passed that has to do with human trafficking compliance. Talk a little bit about what that is, how CRAs can be compliant, and how you can help with that, because I know that's a big issue, and I know there's some severe penalties if people are not compliant.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing. It's a big issue, but it's flown under the radar. This is, it flew under my radar, and I don't miss a whole lot. But it's in effect right now, and it's a change to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. This isn't some little, thing off in the ether. And what really got me is, basically what it does is it allows somebody who has been human trafficked to send a letter to the CRA that suppresses any future reporting of an offense that resulted from their being human trafficked. And so this is part of the FCRA, and they are, the FCRA is kind of, I wouldn't say vague, but yeah, it's kind of vague sometimes. What is a reasonable procedure? Well, that's kind of up to interpretation. What is maximum possible accuracy? Well, that's kind of up to interpretation. This is very specific. You have to inform consumers, the world, on your website. You have to have 2 different mailing addresses and allow them to submit information to you, and then you have to make sure that you don't ever report anything like that in the future. And it's much different than the identity authentication and the dispute process that you're used to doing with consumer reports, because number one, usually as an industry we are, prove it or remove it. You don't report 18 different David Smiths and say you sort it out. I'm not sure one of them, but they all look pretty bad. You sort it out. This is the opposite. If a consumer sends you an information and it's a little sketchy, you have to look at the harm that may come from misidentification. So you've got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And you can't say, I don't think, you stole some 40 pairs of Gucci shoes. I really don't think that was because you were human trafficked. You can't do that. If they have something that's signed by a tribal government county authority, you have to accept that. And then when you accept it, you have to do it in 4 or 5 days. You have to store the information for 7 years. You've got to have a policy and procedure, and the letters to the consumers notifying you have to send a letter that contains very specific things, from everything from the CFPB complaint URL to how you made the decision. So it's really, I mean, it's usually on the FCRA there is it's a matter of dispute. There's discovery. You did a report on somebody, and now then there's kind of, was that a reasonable procedure? Wasn't it? Did you use maximum possible? This is different. You don't have to have touched that consumer. If a consumer comes and they look at your website and there's no place to submit, you're in violation of the FCRA. It's flown under the radar, but that's a clear. I mean, how are they going to get this information stopped? And I think it's kind of a dumb law, frankly, because really what they should have done is said, okay, consumer, you have the ability, or victim, you go to the jurisdiction, you go to the county, you go and get it suppressed there. Don't make these poor victims write 2,000 letters to every CRA in the country, and another one's starting tomorrow. So it's kind of dumb, and I think that's really kind of why it flew under my radar. With it, my clients, they don't database information. They don't know this person from Adam. They've never seen them, but that doesn't matter. And so what I've created is a compliance package that outlines exactly what you must and must not do. Provide wording for the website that's compliant with the law, an internal policy and procedure to make sure that you don't dispute something that they say that's, the government official has signed on, and then templates that you send to the consumers, because the next step would be is, they send something and then you reply back with a letter and it doesn't have the CFPB complaint URL on it, something like that. So it's just a little compliance package that I am selling, and I'd like to get it out here pretty quick, because I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, my challenge is getting the word out there without getting the word out there to some people who I'd prefer not get the word and wave the red cape in front of the charging plaintiff bull.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It doesn't really help. I think I understand the intent of it, but the goal is it'd be better to suppress it at the county level, because if the CRA or background screening or researcher that's doing the research sees that, it would be flagged and not be reportable. But under the other way, unless every CRA is notified, the record would still flow outbound, and that wouldn't help us.
Well, you'll have to stop it. You've got to stop it. And it's like the accreditation. One of the clauses is reappearance of inaccurate information. So if you have a consumer call and say that record was expunged or sealed, you shouldn't have reported that. And you go back to the county and, well, by Jove, the county, they goofed. That really should have been sealed. And so you work it out with the consumer. I'm sorry, here's your updated report. It shows nothing now. There was a mistake made at the county. Well, if he goes down the road and a year later, he goes with, even another one of your clients, and they order the report, and you report the same thing again because the county hasn't fixed it. Now the consumer, they're not happy. They may have paid an attorney. You knew that information was wrong, and you reported it anyway. And so on your systems, you kind of need to have what you might say, if this Social Security number comes into our system, it's eyes on. We need to look at this one because we have discovered that the information not be right. We know it's not right. We want to make sure we don't report it. Well, this is the same thing with human trafficking. It comes in, it's preemptive. And if this Social Security or if this identification number comes in, eyes on. Somebody needs to look at this and ensure we don't report the parts that were a result of human trafficking.
Crazy. Well, Derek, thanks so much for spending time on background screening tips and tech with me, Tim Santoni. I really appreciate your time and your insights. If you want to connect with Derek, please visit crazoom.com or feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn. He's a valuable resource to the screening industry, and really appreciate you coming on the show, Derek. You have a great day.
Yep.